What's going on, guys? It's Richie Rax here with another edition of Richie's Picks, and I got everything you need to succeed in your weekly fantasy tournaments, okay? Now, we already did quarterbacks. We're getting into running backs now. Like I said last time, it's already Thursday, so no Broncos, no Chiefs. That means no Jamal Charles, no Nile Davis, no CJ Anderson, no Ronnie Hillman, okay? So let's get into it. Now, as we all know, it's not just about picking the best players. It's also about picking the best players at the price points. So I'm not always going to just pick the best players off the top of the list that cost the most money. You know, what's the point of doing that? We all know those are good players, right? And if everyone has the same player and the same player puts up 23 points for everyone, it's a wash. It's like everyone has zero. So what we're doing is sifting through the bottom of the barrel and trying to find value in those players that sometimes get overlooked, okay? So I'm going to start with the best value, or not necessarily the best value, but the lowest price tag, and work our way up to the highest price tag, all right? And this week, I'm going to start it off with Darren Sproles for $3,500. The Eagles are going against the Cowboys. They're playing in Philly. And Darren Sproles at $3,500 to me is just an absolute steal. The way Chip Kelly uses him in the offense, it's almost like he's a receiver. He had 5 rushes for 50 yards last week against the Falcons in their loss in Atlanta. But he had 7 receptions on 9 targets for 76 yards, okay? That's huge. That's huge right there. 7 receptions on 9 targets. Some receivers didn't have 9 targets last week, okay? And Dallas doesn't have the strongest defense in the world. It remains to be seen how they're going to do this season, but the way they use him is amazing. He had 19 points, 19 fantasy points without a touchdown. So I'm looking for another great performance per dollar out of Darren Sproles this week against the Cowboys, okay? Working our way up in the price tag, we got Danny Woodhead. All right, the Chargers are going up against Cincinnati. They got Woodhead tagged at $4,000. Okay, he had 12 carries for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he also had 4 receptions on 7 targets for another 20 yards. Okay, that's great. You know, you want that. You got to remember it's PPR. They're getting a point for every single reception, so it's huge in these leagues, especially when you can find somebody. The thing I like about Woodhead, he's always flown under the radar. He has in his career, and I think he does in fantasy as well. And it's going to be one of those players that a lot of people aren't necessarily going to take. So, like I said, if everyone takes the same player, it's a wash. It's like you might as well have 0. But if you can find these players, these diamonds in the rough, you know, and no one else is taking them, and it gives you extra money to spend on a high-end receiver or a high-end running back, you know, that's what you're looking for in these weekly tournaments. Okay, another interesting thing, he's splitting carries with the rookie Melvin Gordon, who everyone thought could possibly be the lead back. But Danny Woodhead got 12 touches, 12 carries for 42 yards. Melvin Gordon had 14 carries for 51 yards. They're equally as efficient. But Danny Woodhead got a goal line look from a yard out, okay? Melvin Gordon didn't. So, you know, just an interesting little tidbit there and something to follow. He got the goal line look last week. We'll see how they do this week against Cincinnati, whose defense gave up 10 fantasy points to Oakland without Derek Carr last week. So we'll see how that pans out. Now, working our way up the list, man, I like Chris Ivory this week, man. He had a great week last week going up against a tough Cleveland defense. He had 20 rushes for 91 yards, 1 reception for 9 yards, 2 touchdowns against Cleveland. Cleveland's got a great defense, man, and what I'm looking for here is the volume. And for $4,700, you know, that's great value for somebody who's gonna get 20 touches a game. I mean, geez, and then they're going up against Indy, who gave up 145 total yards to backs against the Bills last week. Now it is a Monday night game, and they said that Chris Ivory has sustained some type of minor injury, but it's something to watch because you don't want to get stuck with a player on a Monday night game, and you know, then he winds up being injured, and you know, then you have to find someone else on the roster to replace him, and it's just a waste of money and a waste of space. So that is something to monitor. But Chris Ivory at $4,700, you know, he put up 20 points last week, and I like Chris Ivory. man, here this might be the steal of the week right here. Is Carlos Hyde, man, at 5,100. Jeez, the kid had 26 rushes for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions for 14 yards, 35 fantasy points, going up against the Vikings last week. I mean, we're taking it back to the workhorse days, all right? Fantasy has shifted over the years. It's not so much about having that one premier back that's touching the rock every single time, but Carlos Hyde is that back, okay? And they're going up against Pittsburgh this week, who gave up 160 total yards to Dion Lewis when they played New England. So Carlos Hyde at $5,100 is just an absolute steal. Take that all day while it lasts, because it's not going to be like that at the end of the season. It would shock me if at the end of the season you can get Carlos Hyde for anything less than $7,500. That's real talk right there. It's just straight up. But love Carlos Hyde this week, man. 26 rushes. You got to love that. Working our way up. I like Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram, $5,900. Tampa Bay is going against New Orleans. They're playing at home. New Orleans is. He only had 9 carries last week against Arizona, and that was for 24 yards. But he had 9 targets. He caught 8 passes, so there's 8 points right off the top for 98 yards. Spiller's still out. He's back there with Kyrie Robinson. He's obviously going to get the looks over Kyrie. He's the bigger, stronger back. He's getting more touches. He's getting more receptions. And they're going up against the Tampa Bay defense that just got absolutely shredded last week. They gave up 22 fantasy points to Bishop Sankey and the Tennessee Titans. We all saw that, the Marcus Mariota debut and how he tore them apart. Don't expect anything different this week against New Orleans at home in the Superdome. They're going to absolutely shred them to pieces. And I love Mark Ingram at $5,900. I got him in a bunch of my lineups this week. All right, now we've worked our way through those mid-tier picks and those value picks. Now we're getting up there, right? We're getting up there to the beast. Who's the beast, man? Come on. Who's the beast? It's the beast mode himself. All right, it's Marshawn Lynch. Who better to be the beast of the week than the beast himself? Marshawn Lynch. He's going to cost you $7,200. All right, they're going up against Green Bay. He had 18 carries last week for 73 yards. That's against a tough St. Louis Rams defense. They are stingy, man. They're grimy. Okay, they're grimy against the run. And he still had 73 yards. He got 18 touches, 5 receptions for 31 yards. Okay, this week they're going up against Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay gave up 166 total yards to Forte last week, and their whole game plan was probably based around how to stop Forte, and they still gave up 166 yards. Beast mode is going to go beast mode this week against Green Bay. All right, he has probably the highest ceiling of any running back, and the highest floor, I should say. For those who are new to, fantasy lingo, when we're talking about a floor and a ceiling, a floor is going to be the base minimum of what a player is going to score or how many times they're going to touch the rock. Okay, so we're talking about 18 carries and 5 receptions as the base minimum. That's against a good team, and he was still able to muster up a solid 17 points for you. And now he's going up against a much weaker defense. Man, I'm all in on beast mode this week, dude. You pair him up with a couple of these bargains down here that we got, or maybe even like a Kyrie Robinson who's going for $3,300, somebody cheap like that who's definitely going to get some receptions and go up against a weak defense and leave you a little extra money to get someone like Marshawn Lynch. I'm going for it all day, man. I'm all in on Lynch this week. All right, so those are my picks, guys. There's your running backs. Stay tuned. I got more picks coming up. I got wide receivers and tight ends in the next segment. All right? As always, this is Richie's Picks. I'm Richie Rax. Let's bring that money home, baby.